countries, the most common thing to do, of course, is to, well, not common, the most sensible thing to do is to communicate with them. You have to talk to them. You have to make dealings with them. And that's usually done through the English language because it's the most, not the most used in terms of number of users, but that's Chinese. Rather, English is the most commonly understood language in the entire world. So, most everybody know how to speak English, or at least understands it, because it's being taught to everyone around the world. What else? For fields like the academe, if you're studying, just like what we attended last year, where myself and two other students, one from the math department and the other one was from the history department. Those two students studied in a university in Indonesia. So they were able to discuss and work in groups with people coming from other countries. So that also entails communication. Okay? I mean, globalization is all around us. Even dating has become a global phenomena because now you can just chat and flirt with somebody from Europe or from the US or Singaporean or Malaysian or whatever floats your boat, and you can get to do that by using Messenger or Facebook, or what's that thing where you can slide pictures from left or right if you want to date them. And there's a lot of dating apps, basically. So that's also being globalized. So everything now, from dating, interpersonal communication, from business communication, that's all being done through globalization. And all of that entails communication. Okay. Local and global communication in multicultural settings. So this mostly involves the readings that I gave you. I hope you've read them. So I will be discussing them as briefly as possible, just so you can understand it better in the context of the Philippines, because the reading is more in the context of the US. But we'll go and discuss this. Okay. So these are several of the terms discussed in your reading. So diversity, I would define it more as a state of tolerating and or accepting differences of race, sex, gender, ethnicity, etc. We can say that a place has diversity when you have different people with different races or different sex or different gender or different ethnicity, blah blah blah, different backgrounds basically, and they are situated in one place openly, being themselves. So if they're gay, they're out in the open about it that they're gay. They're comfortable with telling other people that they're gay, and it's accepted in society, or tolerated even. What's a multiculturalist? These are persons respectful of and engage with people from distinctly different cultures. So for example, you can say that you're a multiculturalist if you go to a different country that has a different culture from your own, and yet you've made strides or made efforts so that you don't offend those people. Then you try to understand them better. That's basic steps to becoming a multiculturalist. When you've reached a certain understanding na, okay, ganito sila, before you even start the communication process, then you're a much better multiculturalist. But yes, that's a process. It's a general process. Culturally confused is the state of lacking an understanding of cultural difference. And this happens to a lot of us, a lot of people. Parang, um, yung parang hindi mo magets kung bakit. Why is it that in their country, it's like this? Or, even the comparison, like, why is it in the Philippines that we're like this, but in Singapore it's like this? Okay, I've heard that a lot. Like, bakit daw sa Pilipinas we don't have that rule with the escalators? Okay? Kasi in other countries, or we have that rule in certain malls have that rule, but we don't follow it. Like, if you stick to the right side of an escalator, you have to stand still, nakatayo ka lang until it can go up to the ascending floor. And then the left side of the escalator is left open so that people who are in a hurry, they can walk and run towards the ascending floor or to the descending floor, whichever. That's something that I've also observed in places like Singapore. But here in the Philippines, we have malls that have tried to institute that rule, but it was unsuccessful. And then some people would say, but sa Pilipinas kasi ganito, ganito, ganito. And those things, those small little things, those are cultural. And culture, yes, we can change it. Pwede nating baguhin ang kultura. But it takes time. So, if the malls instituted it just like last year or 2 years ago, don't expect people to just automatically follow it. Because we've become accustomed to thinking na, okay, pwede ako magtayo. And because also we talk a lot. Even while we walk, Filipinos talk a lot. Madaldal. So, it doesn't, the system doesn't work for us because even when we are on the escalator, we want to talk to the person that we're accompanying. Unlike in Singapore, when they're commuting or when they're walking about, going to the or walking in the mall, they don't normally talk a lot when they're surrounded by other people. So this is cultural. And then it's the lack of our understanding of these things na, okay, may cultural aspect pala kung bakit ganon. That's being culturally confused. Okay. Now, cultural imperialism cultural imperialism is the expansion of dominion of one culture over another culture. That is to say, you have a dominant culture.
I didn't understand that.
You have a dominant culture. Sorry. That was my phone. Okay. Nasaan tayo? Cultural imperialism. The expansion of dominion of one culture over another culture. You have here one culture that is dominant and another culture that is less popular or a more non-dominant culture. For example, in the Philippines, we have the so-called Manila imperialism. We believe that well, it's a subconscious belief really that when it's trending in Manila, then it's cool. So, or if you come from Manila and you talk like a Manileño or a Manileño when you go back to the province, then somewhat you feel like you're okay, ang galing ko, I sound social, blah blah blah. May ganyan tayong mga friends na nag-aaral sa Manila tapos pag bakasyon uwi dito. Yung tono nila iba na. And they feel like there's a sense of parang mas magaling na ako ngayon because I came from Manila and I survived it. Something like that. That's a form of cultural imperialism. Believing that the way Manileños or Manileñas behave, including how they talk, is more superior than, say, if you're from the provinces. Cultural imperialism also manifests in that game, in Among Us, where people started to complain that why are Filipinos speaking in Filipino when the server is in English. And even other Filipinos, they were thinking, o nga naman, they shouldn't speak in, nakakahiya na maging, to be identified as a Filipino because blah, 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 blah. I've seen it all in Facebook. That's also a form of cultural imperialism, believing that we actually have to adjust to an English speaking community just because the server is in English. I mean, why not speak in Tagalog and then force the game to create a server for Filipinos? I mean, why not? It does not say that just because the server is in English that you have to keep it English. There's no such rule. And yet, because we don't speak in English, we are condemned. And other Filipinos are also condemning that. Dapat kasi English yung gamitin. And may concept din tayo na, if you speak in English fluently, then you're smart. That's a form of cultural imperialism. I mean, we often forget that language or linguistic intelligence is just one intelligence. It doesn't mean because you're good in English that you're very smart. There's also different forms of being intelligent. But because we believe that English is such a great language, and if you know English, then you're very smart. And this is because of our colonial history. Yeah. It's a form of cultural imperialism. Okay. Moving forward. Intercultural communication. This is the interaction with individuals from different cultures. So, from a Filipino to a Singaporean, or a Filipino and an American, or even, say, a Catholic and a Muslim in a communication setting. That's also intercultural communication. What else? A rich person and a poor person communicating. That's also a form of intercultural communication. Sorry. Interracial communication is the interpreting and sharing of meanings with individuals from different races. So that also includes Filipino and a different race, or kasi hindi tayo masyadong racially diverse. But in the US, for example, this interracial communication happens when an Asian American talks to a Black American, or a Hispanic American, or a Latin American, say, talks with with an Asian. Okay, these are identified races, and if you communicate with them, that's a form of interracial communication. Interethnic communication is the interaction with individuals of different